It's the 5th day of May, 2020. Don't ask me what happened there. I don't even know. 2024. Oh, I know what happened. My apologies, everybody. That's the way it goes some days around here. That's the way it goes. We're running into some problems. What's going on there? That's the only thing that matters. We're here. We're here, and that's way over there. Unfortunately, that's also here. I'm going to do a show on, because I had a news cycle show ready to go. Yesterday morning, the show was pretty well ready. And then last night, I went into the time machine, and I was looking for, just out of curiosity, started taking screen captures. Next thing you know, guess what the show is tonight? It's a good show, of course. Oh, I know what I've done wrong here. I know exactly what I've done wrong. Well, it doesn't really matter. I don't think it really matters. Sometimes the show goes like that, right? Oh well, let's keep going here. Probably a game changer. Special issue of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Exit from nuclear power brings economic, environmental benefits. We've seen a mass die-off of species for the last number of years in particular. You can call into the live show. I'm Dana Durnford. And you can call in Canada. You got to put a 1 in front of it. 1-709-589-4406. We've never had a pro-nuclear call in and say I was wrong. And we've been doing this since Shinzo Abe was a baby. Probably a game changer. Yeah, getting rid of nuclear, we wouldn't have the massive die-offs. We've over 10, what is it? The numbers climbed dramatically for the grey whales. Over 10,000 dead grey whales, most of them emaciated. It was the same thing with the minke whales. It was around 10,000. Or the cold-verted beak whales, rather, in the United Kingdom. They found over 1,000 different stages of decomposition. And which means just 10% basically of what's died. So that's 10,000. They were all emaciated. It's the same thing with the humpback whales. It just came out and said 7,000 extra whales are missing on top of what they've already reported. And everything they reported on, the majority of it was emaciation. And even if they're emaciated, they were trying to equate them with getting struck by a ship. When I was growing up on the ocean, we have no automobiles where I grew up. And if you suggested that the boat was going to hit a whale, everybody would blow up laughing at you because it was so absurd. The only way you're going to hit a whale is if it's dead or if it's emaciated and can't get out of the way. Germany's producing too much power after turning off nuclear reactors. And experts warn that the gas-driven plants are shutting down. Wind, solar, and hydro prices are too low. And of course, nuclear can't work without two dedicated coal, gas, or oil plants. So they're dedicated to build it. You ever see these sites are massive. They're dedicated to run it for its life, and then it's dedicated for another 60 years for the decommissioning. So anybody talks about resource intensive, nuclear is the most resource intensive, period. But why would you, wind and solar and hydro's prices are low, but see, the world hasn't jumped on the geothermal, because the minute geothermal goes mainstream, everybody's going to realize we've been hoodwinked for over 100 years in particular, where geothermal could have provided all the energy you ever dreamt of for billions of years. Like, geothermal is never going to go away. And it's everywhere. Every community can have their own geothermal. All-time high radiation levels in the wells at the Fukushima plant. And so originally the tanks were filled up from the wells. And what they done was they drilled a whole bunch of wells all along the shoreline and around the site downhill from the reactors, and in order to quantify releases from underground, right? And then they would pump up that. Now, the reality of it was it couldn't actually work that way. And I'll explain that to you, actually, because I think that's important. So you're drilling wells all around the site, drilling down 100 feet, 200 feet, or 50 feet, or whatever. And then the highly radioactive water from the site, from the reactors, is running towards the ocean. And then they would do samples. But they would pump up volumes, they said, and they were putting it in the tank. And that way the water allegedly wasn't getting in the ocean, which is the nuttiest excuse imaginable. But it's not one of the most nuttiest proclamations they have made. And so the reality of it was, you're talking multiple sieverts per liter. So if you pump this stuff up, you can't go near the hoses. That's a lethal dose. If you're putting it in containers, you can't go near the containers. These are lethal doses. And not only that, the stuff is splitting atoms, because you're talking about particulates from the reactor core. They're going to be splitting atoms, the fuel particulates. So it actually couldn't be done, see? But when you got 1.1 billion, it's 2013, per cubic meter of strontium-90 atoms. Remember, strontium-90 didn't peak until about the first 1,000 days. And then it's a 100-to-1 ratio of cesium-137. In other words, for every 137 produced, there's 100 times more strontium-90. But this is, you're not even scratching the surface of the material that these disease factors are producing. Feared the highly contaminated water is leaking into the ground. Well, it leaked everywhere, not just into the ground. There was an extra 865,000 cancers in the first year, right? And cancer is not the only illness and diseases, not immune deficiencies or injury. The West Coast, United States, Canada, this study is from Ottawa, by the way, Canada, central Canada. At 220 million atoms per liter, these are numbers we've never even imagined before, pre-Fukushima. We've never considered this could happen, these kinds of numbers. We have no documentation throughout history of these kind of numbers in radioactive fallout ever. The extreme numbers was like 90,000 atoms. That was considered extreme. 220 million atoms is just, that's going to exterminate the species, right? Said, I won't eat any seafood, a Japan professor. I've changed my entire diet. And these black bags you're going to be seeing in these pictures, these are pictures I made up, because there was 150,000 sites, which meant there was at least 150,000 pictures. And at best, we got around 1,000 of the official pictures. But I thought it'd be interesting that if I created the other 149,000 pictures with artificial intelligence. And so you're going to see that over there tonight in particular. That's what you're looking at, is because we have to imagine, and we can imagine. You're talking about, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. So it's like it's impossible to comprehend the enormity of what 30 million one-ton bags looks like. But I have a few different ways that helps to articulate it. This is one of them. So Japan professor, there was a lot of dissenting voices in the first couple of years. There really was, and I'm showing you them tonight. But they slowly went silent and eventually disappeared by 2017, it was literally very rare to hear any descending voices. And by 2020, it was you just didn't hear it anymore. He refused to buy fishery products from any market anywhere in the country after bringing a detector to the store and learning the actual radiation levels. Japan's supermarket labeled Fukushima area cabbage has grown 1,000 kilometers from the meltdown. I got a bunch of videos at the end of the show tonight. So Japan was labeling food from the nuclear wasteland as grown 1,000 kilometers in the other direction. They never stopped growing food, and Fukushima Prefecture was the breadbasket for Asia too, right? They produced about 1 billion pounds of rice alone in Fukushima Prefecture, which is, I think it was the biggest prefecture in Japan on top of that. And of course, wherever there's nuclear, they're always going to be surrounded by farms, unless they got a giant city at their fingertips. Fukushima contains dangerous levels of radioactive material. Japanese TV. Fukushima seafood is now on sale. They never stopped growing it. They were shipping it to Canada because 55 other countries banned it in 14 prefectures, not just Fukushima Prefecture. But Canada removed all restrictions after 93 days. And right now, the opposition of the House was kicked out of the House because he called the current monster, the disgusting parasite Justin Trudeau, a monster, basically. And it was unprecedented. Like, we've seen Justin Trudeau call us monsters, call us Nazis, call us all kinds of connotations, the derogatory connotations, because people wouldn't follow their Stasi orders. Fukushima contains dangerous levels of radioactive material. Fukushima seafood now on sale. 30 million one-ton bags is enough to do that, right around the entire planet. In just one-ton bags from Japan. And so we only have about 1,000 official pictures. We need to make, there's 150,000 sites. So theoretically, we need around 500,000 pictures. But just one picture for each site would still be 150,000 pictures that are missing. That's like, try thinking about a book with 150,000 pages, right? Or try thinking about physically taking 150,000 pictures and printing them out the size of a standard sheet of paper and then lining them up side by side. Think about the enormity of that job. And this was only 3% of the land. Thyroid data means much more radiation must have come out of Fukushima reactor than anyone reported. Medical professionals are talking about how many cancers have started showing up. But there's also heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, and even Alzheimer's and dementia and autism and diabetes. And because we've lived in denial, and we don't need to live in denial. There's been a purposely deception of the information. A local Japanese official found with a shotgun blast to the chest lectured against nuclear power after Fukushima. And he died what they said in an undetermined manner, but it was a shotgun blast to the chest. Which doesn't, like a shotgun blast, when you say shotgun blast to the chest, you're not talking about suicide, right? So, show me where the top 150 feet of that reactor are to. Because that's where the reactor core and the fuel pools were to. Show me the top 150 feet of that reactor 3, because that's where the fuel pools with decades of reactor cores and the running reactor core, the plutonium mixed oxide reactor core, the MOX fuel reactor core were to. And we got a poll tonight. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Should Japan and nuclear industry apologize for, oh, look at that, I've smurfed up, killing the planet, the oceans, the species, and the future. It's pretty rare for me to actually screw that up, isn't it? It's only maybe once or twice a year I'll make a mistake on it. But people notice, man. People lets me know too, right? So that's one thing I love about people. They never give me a break. You screwed up, Dana. I'm not watching your show no more. Contamination concerns are growing. Degenerate writers. High radiation levels 270 kilometers from the meltdowns. Over half of Japan is living in contaminated areas. The whole country is, including places 400 kilometers away. And you'll see the sources and the names, right? This is a really super interesting one. Corium-244 detected for the first time outside the plant. Well, they stopped looking for corium and plutonium right away. Requires lead shield 20 times thicker than plutonium-238, which is a nasty isotope. And curium isotope is the biggest byproduct of the radiative fuel rods. That's why they call it a curium when you have a meltdown. Because plutonium is very, it's a very serious isotope, right? Just bear with me now. I'm just waiting for a couple of studies to pop up. As compared to the... And 238 is what they use on satellites and spacecraft, they say, to generate electricity from the heat, right? From the energy. Let me do that again. Something smurfed up. Why does that? It always shows up right away, but not today. One more try. Maybe it's too broad of a subject. Okay, that's okay. Bear with me. I'm not giving up that easy. We're almost there. We're just waiting for those studies to pop up. Oh, because I put an S on it. Son of a gun. Okay, so let me just explain how this plays out. So you got 1996. You had Loveless Respiratory Research Institute, which is the Navy, the U.S. Navy, took 144 beagle dogs and a single inhalation of plutonium. They were allowed to live out their life, and all the dogs typically had 3 tumors of the lungs, the skeleton, and the liver. At about 3 years after exposure, but not necessarily. They started dying 1.5 years to 5.4 years later. So it didn't take 3 years for that to play out. It was 1.5 years for them to start dying. And lung tumors, bone tumors, the skeleton tumors, found in 93 dogs out of 144, the most common cause of death. The lung tumors were the second most common. And liver tumors and tumors in the 3 organs often occurred in the same animal were competing causes of death. But this statement, last statement, is because you got to realize this is the military-industrial complex study. They're very deceitful, dishonest, and disingenuous, and murderers, really. These findings in dogs suggest a similar dose-related biological effects could be expected in humans exposed to 238 plutonium. But the problem was, it was discovered 1976, 20 years before Loveless Respiratory Research Institute, Dr. Raymond Gilman had done their studies for the Navy in New Mexico. It was discovered that human kidneys are 50 times less efficient than an animal kidney at removing the plutonium. An animal kidney is 50% more. So when you hear about animals, large animals, not small ones, because you want to see small ones in the Chernobyl. When you hear about large animals at Chernobyl, remember that. And these are always migratory animals, and they use that somehow as wildlife is back because the dirty old humans are gone, right? Disgusting people that would say something like that. So you're 50 times more vulnerable than the dogs in the dog studies. But curium isotopes are the major byproduct in the radiated nuclear fuel rod. And curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. So curium is at least 20 times worse than the plutonium. And curium isotopes are the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods that are now distributed worldwide. And reactor 4, if you use their puny little numbers, it was around 18,000 pounds of plutonium in the fuel pools. If you look at the real numbers, like Wikipedia and that, it's of a typical reactor like that, it's 62,000 pounds. But there's 4 of the reactors. So there's almost 250,000 pounds of plutonium released into the ecosystem. So that's important because curium is an even bigger byproduct than the plutonium. And right, curium is the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods. And not just betas, alphas, gammas, and neutrons, because it's a beta, right? It's not just beta, it's bigger than the gammas, the alphas, neutrons, too. So the biggest byproduct is not iodine-131 or cesium-137 like they would have you believe. But it's important because curium, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium, and plutonium killed all the dogs in all the studies. Former Department of Energy official criticizes UC Berkeley professor for comparing ingestion of radioactive iodine to air travel. And this was Kyle Vetter. He said, for example, a person would have to drink 134 liters of rainwater with the highest radiation levels to equal the average radiation exposure from flying across the country. This is a despicable thing to suggest. I can show you all kinds of studies where per liter you got 220 million atoms of iodine-139. In the same one, it's 20 million atoms of iodine-131. In the same one, it's similar, saturated with xenon. There's another one saturated with cesium-137 from the French study. There was another one with the krypton. There was another one with sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs. There was another radioactive sulfur. There was another one. So, like, the numbers we're talking about per liter are stunning in North America. There's enough to saturate the thyroid glands of all species, not just humans. International Atomic Energy Agency, not for distribution. Molten core is suspected to penetrate the Fukushima containment vessels. The Prime Minister said we couldn't be in Tokyo if the melted fuel went through the reactor. And so, like, it's pretty insane because that's reactor 4 over there, and that's reactor 3. Every nuclear academic on the planet would have known immediately the fuel pool in both of the buildings were gone and the reactor cores. And when that picture showed up, that would have been the end of any kind of debate. But it wasn't. Nobody came out and said, hey, look, the fuel pools are gone. I did. but I don't know of another person that done that. They come out and showed you the picture and said, hey, the fuel pools were at the top of the buildings. The buildings don't exist no more. Local newspaper editorial blast UC Berkeley professor Kyle Vetter again. It says, fallout in our area from Fukushima disaster, nothing to worry about. And that the extremely low levels of both iodine and cesium he measured should reassure people there's little danger in the presence of these elements. He said a person would have to breathe the air for 2,000 years to be exposed. For 2,000 years. Let's just talk about that for a few minutes, because it's hard to comprehend why people like professors are so inherently evil. For me, it is anyway. It's unconscionable. So Kyle Vetter also had done the Kelp Watch, and he came out with the numbers before they even took samples out of the ocean. They had it up on their website and had to take it down. West Coast with 220 million atoms per liter. These are per liter. And the same liter was 20 million particles. Particles are infinitely worse than the atoms. They're particulates. They're fuel particles. 131 per liter fell on the U.S. during post-Fukushima. It was 1 million atoms per square meter. What was the point I wanted to make? Hang on. Oh, yeah. Let me show you. This is France's study of cesium-137. This study was based on 16 days? Yeah, 16. Now, this was based on, I thought it was 31 days or something. Bear with me, I'll find that study. That's what I was looking for, that's what came up. We're right in this section now. There we go. That study you're looking at there, of the radioactive fallout covering the whole planet in about 20 days right there, was a study by France, 1 million times normal. It was actually 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. And that model there is based on 9 days. That's the 18th. So the reactor is finished, never finished, but we're all blew up at least once by the 16th. That's 2 days later, that model. Right? And so the revised model, this one, right here, is 20 days. And to give you context, I put an artificial radioactive fallout because you can't see it or smell it or hear it or taste it or feel it or touch it or perceive it, right? So you need some visual then you got another study of the Neptunium-239. Then you got another study of plutonium-239, I think it is. These are typical numbers. So let's recap that, so you got a study of the xenon-133, which looks like this right here coming up. That's the xenon-133 plume. This is the iodine-131. Then you got the 129 iodine. You got 137 cesium. You got Neptunium-239. You got plutonium-239. So this is just a fraction of them, by the way. So you got one study on the xenon-133. You got another study on iodine-131. These are all separate studies on the iodine-129. You got a separate study on the cesium-137. You got a separate study on Neptunium-239 covering the planet, each one of these. You got another study on the plutonium-239 covering the entire planet. So how long do you really want to live in denial is up to you. But I'm not going to live in denial. All right? It's unconscionable that anybody could live in denial. And so, I show you all these studies. You got the plutonium-239, Neptunium-239. You got cesium-137 that after 20 days covers the entire planet at 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air you're breathing. You got 1 million times normal over the west coast. You got 220 million atoms per liter. This is insane. All of these, any of these are evacuate your country numbers. But when you put them all together, what a betrayal this industry has done. You got 20 million iodines, 131 per liter, and particles. Even the worst is the particles, for goodness sakes. And the xenon-133. That was the xenon-133. Yeah, that's the 133 model right there. So when you see these studies, remember the biggest byproduct is the curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for the plutonium isotopes. The americium, which we didn't touch upon, there's many other cesium besides 137. There's many uraniums because the reactors, all of this is coming from uranium, but just the uranium daughters alone, all of these theoretically are uranium daughters, right? Not just uraniums. But all of them are uranium daughters, every isotope we're talking about. Japan's hidden nightmare scenario for Fukushima. Multiple vapor hydrogen explosions. The hydrogen is created by the meltdown. That's why you have hydrogen in the first place, see? Japan Times alarming government report discusses Tokyo exodus and collapse of spent fuel pool 4. 2012. You won't hear that too often. But when you look at the picture of the spent fuel pools at the top of these 65-meter, 190-foot, 19-story buildings, there is no spent fuel pool over there, right? It doesn't exist. The melted cores cracked the containment vessel. There really is no containment at Fukushima. Well, there's no building. No containment. You got to have a building to have a containment, right? Let me explain that one more time, because that's quite an important picture right there. So when you see this picture of it, there's not a nuclear scientist on the planet, right, off camera, is going to say that the reactor cores and the fuel pools at the top of the building, because the building doesn't exist. So this is why no nuclear scientist is ever called into the show, because you're going to have their name, you're going to have their voice, you're going to have them denying it, and then how do they claim that this picture is not real when that's TEPCO's website, right? U.S. Department of Energy lab in the Pacific Northwest declined to make nuclear fallout results public after initially releasing the data. Kyle Vetter, many people, what a monster he turned out to be. Many people realize this is the only source of hard data out there. Which was a surprise. Not that the government agencies aren't tracking the spread, but they've so far released very little actual data on isotopes of concern to human health, including iodine. But I just showed you all the evidence anyway, didn't I? Let me show you Kyle Vetter, actually. I got a picture of him here, just hanging out with a bunch of criminals that we covered quite a lot. I got no idea what I've done with that. It's okay, let's keep going. And because this video actually is, there's so much unique stuff in this particular video. This is why we're doing that tonight. Fukushima Daiichi has contaminated the biggest body of water on the planet. And radioactive leaks to harm marine and human life. The whole Pacific Ocean is likely to have cesium levels 5 times higher than at the peak of nuclear bomb testing, which was a nuclear war. It's the same bomb, same weapons fallout. And as we're kicking it tonight, we got 18 people. Holy shit. What's going on? We get all those people to. Welcome, everybody. I'm not used to big audiences. It's crazy. 18 people. This is amazing. Get the jazz hands. Should Japan and the nuclear industry apologize for killing the planet, the oceans, the species, and our future? Oh, is that why I only got 18 people? Because the pro-nuclear likes to come here and yuck it up, can't stand the truth? This is my Sunday night shows. It's the first day of the week for me, right? We do 5 shows a week. Typically, hell or high water, too. I'm doing 5 shows a week. It's pretty rough when I don't do 5 shows a week. Fukushima Daiichi has contaminated the biggest body of water on the planet, bar nothing. And so the numbers of just cesium are extraordinary, right? Here's another study. Now, this is the cesium plume of 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air, which is worse than nuclear war they had, called nuclear testing. But the sulfur, radioactive sulfur, peroxide, hydrogen, buckyballs, 360 atoms of radioactive sulfur per day, inhaled by everybody in California, it tends to concentrate in the testicles. That doesn't mean the women got away with it. It just means that this industry hates you even more. So 360 atoms. A single atom is enough to trigger, because it's going to sequester in your muscles, your organs, your bones. If it ends up in your testicles, think about what's happening to birds and animals, mammals and insects and everything else. They're getting sterilized, right? And because they breed quite different than the humans, we breed quite far apart. You know, the kids got to grow up, become adults and everything else. Whereas animals, they don't have that. They don't got to go to school, get indoctrinated for 13 years, nothing like that, right? So they're breeding within a short period of time, or at least 1 year, typically, right? So they produce, compared to us, quite extraordinary. And so it shows up in them first. And so this summer, when you're out driving your vehicle and you haven't got to clean the insects off your windshield, or take it to the car wash and clean the insects off the front of your car, Fukushima was the reason. And without insects, there's no future. So which terrorist group did Hiroshima's 60th anniversary? That was the nuclear industry, the worldwide nuclear industry. Centuries may pass before humans find a way to deal with the molten cores. That's one of the few real statements. But you're not going to find a molten core of reactor 3 or reactor 4, because there's reactor 3, the molten core is up there somewhere. Ejected it right out of the building, right? Unstoppable contamination of the Pacific Ocean is menacing the U.S. West Coast. Unstoppable menacing of the Pacific Ocean. I think that's the appropriate way to put it. Unstoppable menacing of the Pacific Ocean. What's going on here? Bear with me. There's nothing easy about what I'm doing, right? And if I make a Freudian slip, then that's used to bludgeon me. And they'll chop up any Freudian slips, and they'll string them together down the road, and they'll put up the video and say, look, Dana's an idiot. He doesn't know nothing. And the majority of people are going to fall for it. The majority of people are still sleeping on the reality of what's going on. So when you see a headline that says it's menacing the Pacific Ocean, we quantify that. First off, look at this video. I'm not going to play it right. Maybe I will. So this is, that's the stump of reactor 4. The fuel pools that they're saying they're in are at the very top of the building. The building doesn't exist. The building is 4 times as high as the stump you see right there. It was a 65-meter, 19-story building. Well, let's just play it. There's no harm in that.
Where I was standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
That's ABC Cecilia Vega. She's at the White House Press Club right now for, or ABC. She's now in CBS. You know, Seth Dorn up there's the senator's son. BBC, Rupert Winfield Hayes done the same lie for Reactor 4. And Anna Karin, this is TEPCO's apologist. Now, he's going to try to convince you that the building doesn't look like that anymore. It looks like this. We don't play that enough as we should. Let's play that right quick.
And Fukushima Daiichi stage, right after the accident, it was, of course, the emergency condition. But right now, gradually became the decommissioning stage, more stable decommissioning stage. And that's that, as I mentioned, the successful completion of the dismantle of the spent fuel from the Unit 4. It's about 1533 bundle from the Unit 4. And we carefully manipulate the machine and successfully removed those fuel to the ground located pool.
This is insanity, right? Reactor 4 is to your right. There is no building. And what he's doing there, he's at a press club. He's actually at a press club in the United States, and the press is not allowed to question it. The press is not going to hold up. Like, if everybody printed out this picture, or this picture, like you want two of them. You want this picture, and you want to print out this picture. And because that's the official one, and they're claiming they're on top of a building to your left. Is there anybody, you know, if you went out there with your cameras on the streets and you start asking with your pictures, with your big placards, right? Or if there's protest about nuclear, print out 10 of these and bring it down and start passing it out to the nuclear protesters. You'll stomp the guts of the nuclear industry in about 4 weeks. Because that was my plan, right? So if I ever had a big foundation come in and throw $1 million at me, this is what I'm going to do at every protest. And I'm also going to distribute these videos and pictures to every engineering company in North America. It's the end of the industry. You'll kill the industry very quick. And that's all you really got to do, right? Ask everybody on the street, say, which one is real? Is the media really at the top of that building right there? And they'll be like, holy shit. And it wouldn't hurt to have somebody's printed out too. You say, look, the plume covers the entire planet, so they're faking being in the building. That's the end of the nuclear. Goodbye, nuclear. So long, blues. So we done research expeditions because the building's actually melted down. Very long 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean without coming home, because you never knew if you ever get out there again, right? And what we discovered, of course, not of course, but unfortunately, was the coastline is stripped. So the coastline should be a very vibrant. This is a tropical rainforest from Vancouver, British Columbia, to Alaska. We've done that for 6 years, and like the first year, the species were gone. Well, that's it, they're gone. But you had to go back to see if they recovered, and that's the hardest part of research. And the world sits in silence as if they're fucking stupid or something, and can't comprehend truth, can't comprehend the reality. What would you rather have, all the species to the left or nothing on the right? What beach would you rather visit? Is the one to the left or the one to the right? Which one would you take your kids to see, the one to the left or the one to the right? Is this fucking... It's not hard to comprehend. Would you rather go on vacation to see the species to your left or the species to your right? Like, if you're going to go visit a beach, wouldn't it be wonderful to go in and pick all the scallops and clams and abalones and oysters and everything else you can fucking eat at low tide? Or is it better to go ashore and find nothing? Remember, the migratory birds would come in here and subsidize their food. That's why they're showing up emaciated everywhere. But we killed, in order for that to happen, because all those species, they lay eggs, and some of us like a milk and some of us physical eggs, right? And that's actually called phytoplankton in its early stages, right? But it's also called a soup of life. And so typically, if you went and took a glass of salt water from the ocean, it would have 1 billion creatures in it. And 75 to 100 million of them would have been the phytoplankton, which is not just, single cell. It's also the eggs and larvae of all these species. It's the soup of life. And if you took 45-gallon drum of this from all the oceans and you went to another planet with oceans and put this stuff in there, you can literally recreate Earth ecosystem, right? But we exterminated it because of Fukushima, and this is why they're pretending they're in that building that doesn't exist, is because they know what they've done. And the reason they know what it's done is because of us, because we've done the research, and I couldn't do everything on my own. People had to help me, same as people are helping me doing what we're doing right now, which the help has slowed down, but we're still moving forward. The species to your left, would you rather go see them or go see the picture to the right? Which one would you take your camera out for? Would you take your camera out for the picture on the right, or would you take your camera out for the picture on your left? Which one would have made you want to go back? Now, I've done the whole coastline from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska. So from down here to Alaska, there's 27,000 islands, by the way. And after 6 years, it didn't recover, it got worse, which means you killed the soup of life. That's unassailable documentation. And it's not just the Pacific, right? We studied the Atlantic, and I lost most of my support when I came to the Atlantic, because people don't understand that both oceans are important. There's nothing I can do about it, but we had to do the studies, and the first thing we noticed down here was the insects were also gone. And not only that, the spiders are gone from the forest, because normally you would check a spider web to see what species of insects are in that area, right? It should be around almost 500,000 spiders per acre, in the prime season, and there's none. And the only spider webs we did find were completely deformed were on rocks. And the reason they're tying on the rocks is because they can't tie on the trees and plants because they suck the radiation up, right? And then at the tip of the plant where the radiation going to end up to, because that's where the radiation gets sucked up like the nutrients from the ground. I forgot about my cup of tea, now it's gone warm on me. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, possible worst case scenario, examined MOX at the number 3, also speculated an steam explosion would reject an entire cord from the reactor. Well, we got a picture, right? This is reactor 3. The reactors are right beyond my thumb right there, but the height of my thumb. That's the fuel pool in the reactor core is getting ejected. And that's the plume covering the entire planet. It would reject the entire core. Well, here's a picture of reactor 3 over there. And there's not a nuclear scientist on the planet. There's not a nuclear academic, not a nuclear university student on the planet that doesn't know that that's gone. And not one of them has come out and told you that it's gone. Not one. On the entire fucking planet. Not one. Quite the opposite. What does that tell us? How is that even possible? And so all of them should be shipped off to Fukushima. We don't need these people on our planet. These are monsters. Any academic in the nuclear industry that hasn't come out and warned you, it should be shipped to nuclear meltdowns and be done away with. These are monsters. They're only going to go on to destroy your future and your children's future and the ecosystem, right? If they don't have the courage and the fortitude to come out and be honest, then they're worthless. They're the very definition of worthless on this planet. Forget about Ted Bundy. Forget about John Wayne Gacy. The real monsters are nuclear scientists, nuclear academics, and nuclear students, and nuclear professors. They're the NRCs, the regulatory commissions, the owners. The betrayal is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The cowardness is unbelievable. The gutless, spineless, soulless. It's unreal that, you know, these, I don't know, I can't use a typical word on gangsters or bandits or muggers or charlatans or evildoers or whatever, hooligans or thugs. These are monsters. There's no other way to describe these people. The explosion at Fukushima Reactor 3 had seriously damaged Reactor 2. Worst possible case was predicted soon after. Many workers abandoned the facility. They all, like, you didn't need damage from the other reactors. You had no power. They're going to melt down. Reactor 2 was running. It didn't need any damage from... Yeah, going to cause some damage. I don't doubt that. But it didn't need that to help it melt down. It's completely dishonest to suggest that it did. It's because as soon as they lose water, they start to melt down. When they get to 5%, there's no way to recover it. And as far as I know, as soon as it starts to melt down, there's no way to recover it. You can have all the water you want. It's going to burn at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. The hydrogen is going to get created. You're going to have an explosion, right? From the meltdown causes the hydrogen from the zirconium cladding burning. So the reactors blew up because you had no power. You had all the telephone poles for about 1,200 miles ripped off the coastline. You had no power. Everything is ran on external power. All nuclear power plants need external power. Their own gas, their own oil, their coal plants, their own... They need 2 of them dedicated to it, rather. Big ones, like you would use for your city, the same plant. They need dedicated to them to run their massive sites. Each reactor needs 1 million gallons a minute of water, for goodness sakes. 4,500 tons a minute. Imagine taking 4,500 pickup trucks, 1-ton pickup trucks of water, and dumping it on a reactor every minute. Think about that statement. Then you can appreciate the kind of power we're actually talking about. It's equal to 4,500 1-ton pickup trucks every minute. And can you dump a 1-ton truck of water in a minute? Think about that statement. So imagine 4,500 of a minute. Imagine 1 million gallons a minute. You take a gallon of milk, try to pour out a gallon of milk or a gallon of water or something. Now try to pour out 1 million of them. It's an enormous amount of water per minute. And that's how much you need to boil water to power 1 million homes and businesses every minute. Each reactor actually needs that much, right, per minute. So that's just a reactor. Hang on a second. me see if I can. I got a better way to, but I can't remember. Just give me a second, I'll find. I got a great way to. Yeah, I can't remember the names of the two new reactors in the United Kingdom for some reason. Which is a nightmare. It's pretty sad when I can't remember. What's the two reactors in the two new reactors they're building? Anybody remember? I got the comments up. Just anybody remember one of the two reactors they're building? Hinkley Point. There you go. Let me see. I'll show you. Oh. There's Hinkley Point C. So look at this site, right? So think about how much, like they're building this site. It's probably going to take them 20 years to finish it. But try imagine doing that on a generator. Let me bring the whole friggin' thing in there because it's important, right? So each nuclear power plant, to build a nuclear power plant, you need a ridiculous amount of energy to power this, all right? Imagine powering this for 15, 20 years. You need your own gas, oil, and coal plants. And you're not seeing everything here. It's hard to comprehend how much is in a little fraction of those pictures. Because when you zoom in on little pieces of the pictures, like how much energy do you need to power all these cranes every day, right? Try wrapping your mind around it. Well, you need 2 gas, oil, coal plants to power each nuclear site just to build it. And then once it's built, look how big these friggin' disasters are. These are disease factors, and they're surrounded by farms, by the way. So how much energy and how much precious resources and metals are we talking about here? Like, it's extraordinary, isn't it? It's an amazing undertaking to build something that's going to destroy everybody that eats the food within 1,000 miles, because these things are going to hemorrhage radiation. This is the water intakes for these big disease factories. But the enormity of the site, when you zoom in on just a little section, it's going to need 2 gas, oil, and coal plants to run this site for its entire legacy. And whenever you look at nuclear, especially United Kingdom, when you look in the background, what are you going to see? Farmland as far as you can see, right? But you need 2 gas, oil, and coal plants to power this site, to build it, to run it, and for 60 years to decommission it. And so calling it carbon-free is the strangest statement imaginable. And so when you zoom in, look at the incredible... It's bigger than a city, right? It's more complex than any city on top of that. And everything there has to be triply inspected. And then as far as you can see in the background, you see farmland. So once you take fuel out of the reactor core and put it in the pool 14 months later, you're going to poison the shit out of those farms for the next 100 years, right? Because the fuel is not going to be stored, is what I mean. It's going to be splitting atoms into the ecosystem. There's no containment. So they like to show you little pictures like that. But those pictures don't tell the story. That picture doesn't tell the story, see? That picture doesn't tell the story. That doesn't tell the story of that site. You have to stand back. And even then, it's still hard for the average person to comprehend the enormity of these sites. It's unbelievable. And they have the biggest crane in the world here, by the way. Two of the biggest cranes in the world that need over 1 million pounds of counterweight to work. So the amount of energy, like when you look at that round circle over, look how high, that's like 12-story high building, for goodness sakes. And there's enough cement here to build a sidewalk to Rome. Everything that goes on this site is triply inspected independently. So, like when you think about the resources that are there, you're talking about a ridiculous amount. You're talking about 600 or 700 people have to just inspect the material. And they have the arrogance, the incredible hubris to suggest that that's carbon free. It's the most resource intensive industry in history, period, bar nothing. Regulator, we got to stop labs from testing for Fukushima radiation. Tell them to back off. Worried about them talking to the press about the consequences. Government tells university researchers to stop radiation tests on Fukushima residents. Testing people stirs the uneasiness, so we would like you to stop. Well, why wouldn't you test them, though? Nuclear Regulatory Commission analyst indicated elevated child thyroids in Alaska and the Pacific Island, with only 1 of 3 reactor cores releasing radiation. Well, like, to suggest that only 1 of 3 reactor cores were releasing radiation is insane. Right? Because just this one picture shows there's no reactor cores. They're already released everything into the ecosystem. They picked up 150 or 300 million bags at 150,000 sites, which means you need 150,000 pictures, which is why you see that these types of pictures. You can do this right around the entire planet with just 3% of the Fukushima prefecture, because the food or the fallout was only picked up in 3%, and it wasn't picked up, it was scratched up from the surface. The 2 centimeter topsoil was scratched up. Like they're growing food right alongside of 1 ton bags of radiation at 100,000 atoms per kilogram in the bags. These are absurd numbers, by the way. For sale to ship to you worldwide. The food was banned in 14 prefectures by 55 countries, but not Canada. Canada removed all restrictions after 93 days. And the dictator we have in Canada I just don't understand how it's even possible to have a monster like Justin Trudeau doing what he's doing. I can't comprehend it, how he hasn't. Well, because only the British Queen was able to, only the British monarchy can remove a sitting prime minister in Canada. So what does that tell us? That Canada doesn't exist, right? We live in a fantasy. We think we're independent, but the Queen, well, now Prince Charles or King Charles's face is on our friggin' money. Can you imagine how madness that must be for someone like me? Second explosion was more like it's truly Nazi stuff. Second explosion more like a bomb at Fukushima. Spent nuclear fuel flew 30 kilometers away. Pellets collected by the military. Strange materials like euphorium were found. Should have evacuated out to 300 kilometers, which is past Tokyo. Oh, you should have evacuated Japan, right? David Suzuki had it right. Water with 1 sievert per hour dose rate was leaking directly into the ocean after 3/11. No, not directly into the ocean after. It never stopped. So it wasn't 1 sievert per hour. It was infinitely worse than that. Just hang on for 1 second. Sucker for punishment anyway. But I believe in humanity. I do, right? I believe that if you educate the population, then you win. But that's the only way. You can go out and protest in the street all day. There's nothing wrong with that. But they have to know what they're protesting. They have to know what the big picture is. They have to know what's at stake. And I lost track already. Hang on. What was the last headline? Oh yeah, that's what we're looking for. 1 sievert per hour. like, it's a very deceptive term. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose, by the way. But it's much worse than that. Hang on. I'm getting pretty good at this, so. This scam you're seeing right here, this is supposed to be the water filtration system. Let me jump on that in a second. September the 5th, 2013, TEPCO released a video of groundwater entering the reactor. Radiation levels around the tanks used to store thousands of tons of radioactive water on the site of Fukushima Daiichi at over 2.2 sieverts per hour. So, and they're actually only talking about beta. So 2.2 sieverts per hour. So if you're going to have the same of gammas, alphas, and neutrons and betas. So a liter of that, everybody on the planet walks past it, they'll all die within 24 hours of walking past it. So imagine thousands of, or 300,000 gallons in a tank, for instance, right? Imagine, like, you can't get back on the site. And that the hoses you're going to use, you can't step over the hoses and get close to them because that's a lethal dose. And then the road and the pavement and the infrastructure that you ran the hose over, once you remove it all, you can never walk around that area because that's a lethal dose. It can't be done, see? And you can't filter it because after 20 minutes, you got thousands of sieverts in the filter, but 3 sieverts is a lethal dose. And the filter has to be 7-8 feet thick lead to shield you from these kinds of numbers. So again, it can't be done, see? So the water filtration system, so that's important. That's important. Let me just explain that quickly, if there's such a thing. There we go. So in 2014, August the 9th, 2014, they just announced recently they think they finally have the ALPS system operational, 2014. Okay, so let's play this video. This is a couple of minutes long. This is 2013. At the end of 2014, they think they have the filtration system functional, right? So this video is important because
the Fukushima plant sits smack in the middle of an underground aquifer. Deep beneath the ground, the site is rapidly being overwhelmed by water. Beneath the surface, water flows downhill and into the basement of the damaged reactor buildings. There it is contaminated with high levels of radiation. To stop the groundwater flowing on into the nearby ocean, engineers are building an underground barrier. But that is causing the groundwater level to rapidly rise. It's now so high the water will soon reach the surface. Then it will start flowing overground into the sea. This week, the company that owns Fukushima, TEPCO, made this disturbing admission.
We understand that this water discharge is beyond our control, and we do not think the current situation is good.
Outside experts say it's now clear TEPCO is incapable of handling the cleanup at Fukushima. It's time for the Japanese government to step in. The situation is already beyond what TEPCO can handle, he says. If it were possible to take proper measures, they would have done it already. It's not as if TEPCO is refusing to do what they can. They're doing everything they can, but there are no perfect solutions. Even if the government does step in, it's not clear what it can do. The only other solution is to pump out the contaminated groundwater and put it in storage tanks. But after just 2 years, the site is already jammed with more than 1,000 giant tanks. Most of them are already full up. At least 400 tons of new water pours into the site every day, and it's going to continue for years and years. Fukushima's water crisis has only just begun. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes, BBC News in Tokyo.
Okay, so the official story as of July the 13th, 2023, last year, and the author is a professor at the Department of Nuclear and Quantum Engineering, is that it's like throwing 3 grams of sugar into the ocean. And a professor of nuclear and quantum engineering in South Korea. And the total amount of tritium, which he says the only isotope is in the tanks, is approximately 2.2 grams. And I've seen Dana Nasana's comment there, which is making that statement, how insane that the whole thing is, right? And here's a professor of nuclear and quantum engineering saying that everything that went into the ocean was equal to 3 grams of sugar. There's no such thing as sugar. Nuclear reactors don't make anything sweet. Everything is lethal. Nuclear Regulatory Commission's team initially impressions were that the spent fuel pools, number 3, might not be there after seeing pictures. Well, these are great headlines tonight, aren't they? That's why we've done a headline show tonight. Let's look at reactor 3. The fuel pools are at the top of this 190-foot building. Does that look like it's a 190-foot, 19-story skyscraper to anybody? So it's hard to appreciate the size of these buildings, right? But we have a great way of doing that now. So see this bottom piece right there? That's that piece right there. You see Buddy stood up right here? That should give you some context to how big that building to your left and right are, because they're the exact same. That's 150 feet by 150 feet, and it's just 50 meters, right, wide and long, and 50 meters square each side. And then it's 65 meter, 190 foot, 19-story tall. So it's 4 of them, right? So that's the bottom part, and there's 3 more pieces. The reactor cores are at the top of the buildings. So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and this is when was the last time you seen that headline? February 29, 2012, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's team initial impressions were the spent fuel pool number 3 might not be there. And I'll just, that way you can type out that link. I don't know if it'll be there, but, well, clearly it's not there. But now they're saying nothing got out, and it's equal to 2.2 grams of tritium or 3 grams of sugar. And this kind of contempt is just simply not acceptable. They don't own this planet. They're destroying your life, and it's hard to comprehend it because you can't smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or pick it up or throw rocks at it or perceive it. Doesn't mean it's not happening to you. You know, we got 21 viewers. 21. And is my show full of shit? Is my show, not show, but are these presentations full of garbage? Are they, you know what I'm saying, right? And yet, should Japan and the nuclear industry apologize for killing the planet, the oceans, the species in the future? This is why they censored the numbers. They don't want anybody wandering by and say, gee, what's going on here? They don't want anybody who got critical thinking skills to sit there and start pondering what I'm talking about. And the reason you're seeing all of these bags is because there's 149,000 pictures missing. Bear with me. And I don't do this work because it's fun. I can guarantee you it's not fun. And I don't run myself into the ground because the reality of it is I'm actually not even healthy at all. I'm the very last person who should be doing these videos. What the hell is going on? Oh, I'm getting a little slack here. Bear with me. Here we go. So, I'm going to go back to this one. Number one, core total meltdown. And the uranium fuel may be outside the containment building. Nuclear reaction could have restarted May the 16th. So playing past the parcel, they're talking about 30 million one-ton bags of radiation that have to be moved around. And the bags deteriorate after 3 years, meaning that the waste has to be repackaged regularly. Like, if you try to move 30 million one-ton bags, if you try to remove 30 million one-ton bags, and you got 1,000 7-ton trucks, it'll take you a little over 13 years to move those bags. If you got 1,000 trucks going all out each day, moving 7 tons each, it's going to take you 13 years. Now, the bags are incredibly radioactive. You can't repackage the bags. You simply can't do it. Anyway. It means you have to do it right on this. When you move the bag, it means you have to do it as you're doing it. Right? You have to put it in another bag. And I can guarantee you they're not doing that. Okay. But that's 30 million one-ton bags. But this is 2019. In 2019, they have conglomerated it into 105,000 sites. There was actually 150,000 sites of one-ton bags. So 150,000 sites like this, but way bigger, which is 30 million one-ton bags. Again, if you got 1,000 trucks with 7 tons in the back of each truck each day, you got 13 and a half years to move those 30 million one-ton bags. So does that look like 7,000 bags to you, for instance? Let me bring out the calculator. Maybe that's a better idea. So we got 30 million one-ton bags. And we're going to divide that by 7,000, is it? That's days. And divide that by 365. That's 11, that's almost 12 years. I screwed up somewhere in the last equation, maybe, or this one, who knows. Okay, so that's 12 years to move those 7,000 bags a day, right? 12 years. I can't remember what we were trying to do that time. Should Japan and the nuclear industry apologize for killing the planet, the oceans, the species, and the future? Well, yeah, Dana, of course they should. Thank you very much. So 105,000 sites, we only got 1,000 pictures, which means we got to create 104,000 more pictures. But the reality of it was, in 2016, there was actually 150,000 of these sites. And this was 2016, March the 7th. And 30 million tons of radioactive waste will be eventually, because there's other headlines, right? But up to 30 million tons will have to be moved. There's actually more than that. They were dumping it in the rivers and the oceans every day for years and years in Tokyo and everywhere else. The landowners were told that they own the radiation that lands on their land, so they scratched up the topsoil, thinking that TEPCO would take it over. TEPCO told them to get lost. The bags deteriorate after 3 years, meaning the waste has to be repackaged. So it can't be done, right? And so they're not complacent. They're just the nuclear industry is just pure evil. It's completely unhinged. It's completely out of control. It's got 80 years of no accountability. 80 years of never being held accountable. So there's no incentive not to be evil. If there's no incentive not to be evil, guess what ends up happening? Particularly with an industry that's legacy is nothing but abuse anyway. Where 90% of the money and its vastness of the money that it utilizes is insane and so on. But 90% of that goes to administration. In other words, is stolen through administration. 10% is actually used for the infrastructure. And we covered a story a couple of shows back, where they had 43, or the last show I think it was, where they spent 40, at that point, I can't remember what year it was, but at that point they had spent $43 billion picking up 1-ton bags. $43 billion. $43 billion just on that facet alone. Cover over reactor 1 is only cosmetic. It was a Kevlar sarcophagus that it was panels, and he just hung the panels. You see the hooks up there? That's what they're meant to hang onto the panels. And the panels are really heavy, and they hang there with gravity. But ultimately, it was only able to handle winds of around 60 miles per hour or something. Expert plutonium-241 from Fukushima is nearly 70,000 times more than the atomic bomb fallout in Japan. It's infinitely worse than that. It's around 250,000 pounds of plutonium. Japan got hit with around 60 pounds of plutonium. There's 250,000 pounds missing from those reactors. Because once the fuel goes through the chain reaction, once it starts the chain reaction, and then there's what's known as a fuel cycle, which is 14, 18 months or something. And now it's a breeder fuel where it's producing plutonium fission products, right? It's splitting atoms. And this is what they covet, is that the end of the fuel cycle. When you take it out, now it's a breeder. So this breeder material can produce enough plutonium to power all the reactors in the country if they can harness it. Thank goodness, I guess, that they couldn't harness it. And the reason I say I guess is because if they were able to harness it, maybe they wouldn't, because there have been so many meltdowns and events from trying to accomplish that. Like Santa Susana was one of these breeder reactors. It melted down in 1959, and it's 460 times more releases than what they acknowledged from 3 Mile Island, which is what they acknowledged as 2 million people got irradiated. And I covered it on its anniversary this year. Or did I? Oh, you know what? I might not have done an anniversary video for 3 Mile Island. My goodness, that can't be real. I'm going to have to do one of them this week. If I didn't do it, I'll have to check that now. Crap. Well, that's good, I suppose. As long as we do it, and better late than never, right? But they said it was like watching color television for an extra year, the 2 million people that got irradiated. And they said it was a millisievert, or, a millisievert, 1,000 microsieverts. Which is a horrific amount of radiation, because they're not getting hit by shine or neutron bombardment or beta rays or alpha rays conventional from fuel rods. They're hit by fallout, which means they're breathing it in. They're consuming it. They're eating it. They're drinking it. They're breathing it. It's in their clothing, their hair. I mean, anybody goes to Fukushima should shave their hair when they come out of there, and their eyebrows, their body hair, and they should throw all their clothing and luggage away immediately. Don't mix your laundry with your other laundry, because that's going to become radiated too. If you bring it home, you're going to radiate the laundry in your household forever. Large areas of the oceans contaminated by plutonium from events such as Fukushima. Build-up in the biosphere is expected considerable hazards to the humans. And officials say molten fuel, now particle-like, contains special nuclear materials. Yeah, special nuclear materials is one way to put it. Nuclear physicists, most of the fallout from the plutonium-containing MOX fuel will drop in the United States unless very strong winds take it somewhere else. The model to your left, an explosion of reactor 3 to your right from that reactor to Durnford, and the model to your left is based on 26 days. All the studies are showing us the same thing, by the way, for the radioactive. There's only one study that's longer than 30 days. That's, I don't know if I can find it. Oh. That's this one here. This is NOAA's study. This study is based on 40 days. This is the only study where the radiation doesn't cover the entire planet in 30 days. And this one doesn't even cover the whole planet, it covers half the planet. And this is the American NOAA, which is a disgusting parasite, despicable parasite. And that study is based on cesium-137, iodine-131, but it's based on a flawed ratio. It's based on venting. It's not based on the actual inventories that were lost in the meltdown. Japanese media blackout of words like MOX, plutonium, and meltdown. That was right away too, by the way. That one is June of 15, 2011, but that's after that had immediately those words were blacked out, and we have Lake Barrett. Is it Lake? Let me see here. Let me bring up something from the. Oh. I'll try to get. I know I got it here. Let me see if I can find Lake Barrett's. One more. I might get lucky. Should pop up right away for me. Lake Barrett. There it is. Here we go. I'm going to put my headphones on and join you on this one. This is where... Yeah, this is Bloomberg, I believe. Yeah, Bloomberg. And they're going to try to make Lake look like a human, someone that breathes here and drinks fucking water.
For the first time, potentially fatal levels of radiation have been discovered outside the crippled nuclear plant.
So, for the first time, discovered outside the nuclear plant. Outside. Fatal levels of radiation outside.
Concerns that contamination is working its way further into Japan's water and food supplies and foreshadowing a long and expensive cleanup. Nuclear engineer Lake Barrett knows what it takes to mop up a catastrophic mess like this. Lake led the initial response to the 3 Mile Island accident here in the United States. He's with us this morning from Washington. Lake, where are the...
So he led the response to 3 Mile Island. I'm just going to get it away for a second.
Major concerns.
Well, the iodine-131 that you hear about, that has an 8-day half-life, so that decays away fairly quickly. I think they should be fine from a health point of view.
Lake, we're beginning to hear more about plutonium. What's the significance of...
So he said iodine decays away in 8 days, right? Let me try that again.
Major concerns.
Well, the iodine-131 that you hear about, that has an 8-day half-life, so that decays away fairly quickly.
So, my goodness, like, there's 10 half-lives.
I think they should be fine from a health point of view.
Lake, we're beginning to hear more about...
So they should be fine. Like, not cover up, but complete denial.
Plutonium. What's the significance of plutonium in this situation?
Plutonium is something that is more emotional than it is technical in this situation. I think the biggest concern people have is the cesium and the strontium.
So let me do that again.
Plutonium. What's the significance of plutonium in this situation?
Plutonium is something that is more emotional than it is technical in this situation.
More emotional than technical. Now, for those who are just joining us, earlier I went through the studies on plutonium. It kills all the animals with typically 3 different tumors. And 93 out of 144 dogs died in bone tumors. But the biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rods is curium isotopes. And curium isotopes, and I showed you that evidence earlier, studies. The curium isotope is the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods. I apologize.
Plutonium. What's the significance of plutonium in this situation?
Plutonium is something that is more emotional than it is technical in this situation. I think the biggest concern people have is the cesium and the strontium and the iodine in the short haul. Yes, there is some plutonium in there. There's always plutonium.
Now, once the Geiger counter hits a hot spot, you have to send it back to the manufacturer to be recalibrated. And this is not how you measure radiation, by the way.
Plutonium in reactor fuel, so it makes more emotional news to talk about plutonium.
Yeah, and there's around 250,000 pounds in the 4 reactors was lost. It was like 235,000 pounds. These are like, I'm not really counting the fact that reactor 3 was mixed oxide fuel, which would have been a huge more ratio of plutonium than any of the other fuels, right? And so that reactor would have added another 60,000 pounds or something of plutonium. So it's closer to 340,000 pounds of plutonium released from Fukushima.
All right, let's talk about...
So it's going to be decades and
4 reactors.
Many billions of dollars to clean it up, but it's just a large industrial catastrophe.
And again, right, just a large industrial catastrophe. But it's not, is it? It covers the whole bloody planet in fallout that's invisible. It never goes away and pulses energy almost at the speed of light every second.
Internally to the plant. It's not a health catastrophe.
He's saying it's internal to the plant, but they start off with lethal doses outside the plant.
Catastrophe for the country.
Not a health catastrophe yet, but here... lots of stuff appears to have been exposed to the atmosphere, and radiation is finding its way already into vegetables and the Tokyo water supply. So at what point in your mind does it become a health disaster as opposed to just an operational disaster?
You're going to start to have findings of some radioactivity outside for weeks ahead, so there'll be news about it. But I don't think overall it's going to be a huge health catastrophe that some people predict. Well, the iodine-131 day half-life, so that decays away fairly quickly.
So compare, if you will, this situation to what we saw take place at Chernobyl and the after effects of Chernobyl over the past 25 years.
Well, I think Chernobyl was a much worse situation. That was a Soviet reactor that basically blew itself up and spread things all over the area there. This is a different type of reactor. There's a lot of water, and most of the radioactivity is kept in the water locally on the plant, although you can see, leakage outside the plant. But I don't think we expect to see a Chernobyl-type situation there.
Okay. Blake, thanks so much for joining us. It's Lake Barrett, a nuclear engineer and former deputy director of the Office of Civilian Radioactive Waste Management.
And we see this over and over. The worst humans imaginable are in the key positions. There's so many of these examples we've covered, like the Mayo clinics, like the people that are running that place are actual demons out there regurgitating the same kind of propaganda that Lake is doing. And these are not what... how would you put it, I wonder? It'd be equivalent down to, say, in Japan, as if the police pulled over somebody and the Yakuza got out with all their tattoos and colors and came up and gave them a ticket, and they had to pay cash right on the spot or they're going to seize their car. The Minichi on the plutonium paradox in Japan, what do you do with the spent MOX fuel? Like, what do you do with the spent MOX fuel? Because once it comes out of the reactor core and you try to put it in a fuel pool, first off, like this, the normal fuel from the reactor, MOX fuel is reprocessed, which is illegal in Canada and the United States, but they're changing the laws now to make it legal, because that's the only way they figure they can pull off these small modular reactors. They're going to have very high weapons grade fuel in order to get the energy from these so-called small reactors that are gigantic. It's a desperate cry, right? It's a desperate cry to try to keep themselves relevant. When the minute people see geothermal, everything else falls apart right away. People are like, what? Geothermal can do it anywhere? What are you talking? What? I can do one out of my cabin? Holy shit! And the plutonium paradox. What do you do with the fuel? Is so energetic that's in the pool. It's incomprehensible for people. So there's 149,000 pictures of 1-ton bags missing. So I had AI cook me up with several thousand now. On the other hand, if these reactors do go online, Japan will end up with increasing amounts of spent mixed oxide, plutonium mixed oxide fuel, and has no way of dealing with it. Nobody knows how to deal with it. What they do is they just put it in the pools and let it boil off the isotopes. The elements from a typical that are in the 1-ton bags, right, from the radionuclear meltdown followed the original stuff, is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison, according to the U.S. government, which you're going to downplay it, obviously, right? So it's 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison, and that's downplaying it. That's being sneaky about it. It's way worse than that. But when you put it through the chain reaction a second time, and when it comes out the other side now and goes into a pool, those emissions are 2 billion times more toxic, or 2 billion times 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. In other words, a single atom, you put 200 million on the head of a needle, you can't see it. You get one of them in your body, and it's incredible energetic. They're pounding the guts. They're pounding your cells, your chromosomes, your DNA, and your organs. They're putting lesions on your organs, permanent. Holes in children's hearts. There's heart, liver, lung, respiratory immediately going to show up in everybody that's infected. You're infected when you get this in your body. It's a biological weapon. That's what nuclear actually is a biological weapon. See, they didn't pick up 30 million 1-ton bags because of like a banana and a potato chip or walking in the sunshine, okay? All right. New push to dump radioactive Fukushima water in the Pacific or boil it in large kettles and releasing the radioactive steam into the atmosphere for years. Or do both, said the UC Berkeley professor. Guess who? Right, Kyle Vetter, right? UC Berkeley degenerate. Nuclear expert, Fukushima is a pretty close approximation of the China syndrome. Well, reactor 1 and 2 reactor cores apparently went China syndrome. Reactor 1 fuel pool detonated, that evaporated immediately. And what didn't evaporate burnt down through the reactor core, which was burning down anyway, because you lost power right from the tsunami. And reactor 2 burnt constantly for several days, the fuel pool. They burn at around 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures when they get cooking, and then they'll shoot right down through the building. And that'll go right through the reactor, and if the reactor wasn't melting down, but it was. Reactor 1 was melting down in melted out in less than 6 hours. It was melting down from the earthquake because you shifted the earth 6 feet or something, right? And so it wasn't getting water at all. And so it went kapooey. Within 50 minutes, it was melting down. By 6 hours, it was out of control. Essentially, it's a machine that's washing radioactivity into the ocean. But it's also washing it into the atmosphere, right? It never stops hemorrhaging into the biosphere, is the problem. All fuel pools are hemorrhaging anyway. There's 1,000 of them worldwide. All of them are producing a plume like this each day. And this one is a xenon-133. But all of them are producing plumes like this from 1,000 fuel pools. And purple, by the way, is the color you get from potassium, burning potassium. So it's pretty sneaky to use the color purple for xenon. Xenon doesn't burn purple. Renewed chain reaction feared at the spent fuel pool, storage pool. And think really long about that statement. You're talking about the spent fuel pool, where they got all 6 reactors are storing reactor cores from the very inception, right? So, 40 years of fuel pools. And so you're not having a nuclear chain reaction. Hang on. We're almost here. Here we go. So this is the spent fuel pool right here. And so 2020, yeah. In January 2020, there was 736 pictures from a drone that were released unceremoniously with no fanfare and nobody reported on except for this small Chinese site. And I had translated it, and I still didn't understand what the hell they were talking about. And as I was scrolling down, because what I have to do my stories typically, my news cycle, is I read the story. I got to go find the story. I say, okay, there's a candidate. You're looking for lies. If there's no lies, you move on to the next story. Unfortunately, I've never moved on to the next story because there's always tons of lies in every story. And so we'll go and challenge it on our show. And just because we can say, well, somebody challenged the lie, right? Because otherwise nobody is going to challenge the lie. Okay, so when I zoomed in, this is what I was seeing. So when I got the drone pictures, I went through all the drone pictures. And click, 736 times. And I was like, well, what's the point of this? I said, I'll start zooming in on stuff. And so I zoom in and I say, what the hell is going on here? Why is everything redacted? And what the frig is, if that's reactor 4, then this is the common spent fuel pool with decades of reactor cores. It's at the same height as reactor 4. Bear with me. The funny thing about this subject is I'm generally not allowed to make a mistake. And appropriately so. I shouldn't, not even a Freudian slip. Even though I have them. It's pretty rare, but I do have them. But I'm trained. I got myself trained enough to know better. Don't ever talk about something you don't know anything about. Because what's the point anyway? Okay, so common spent fuel pool is behind reactor 4. That's 4 sides of reactor 4. Common spent fuel pool is at the same height as reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's one more piece of this equation I gotta go find. We're almost there. I can feel it deep in my bones. Say no more, right? It's got to be right there. Oh, I got it. I'm just looking at everything but, right? Alrighty, here we go. Oh, boy. All right. So the tsunami, this is a good depiction. The tsunami came right through the site. Now, the common spent fuel pool is right beyond reactor 4. It's on the same level, exact same level. The road, you go across the street and there's reactor 4. So, there's no different elevations or anything like that. So the tsunami, and think about what the tsunami means, what it actually done. And think about this, where the red is missing, or red is the fatalities, and the yellow numbers are the people missing. It's around 1,200 kilometers of the coastline. Okay, so reactor 4, look at the damage to reactor 4, by the way. the tsunami ran through reactor 4 and then it had to go through reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4 before it can run into the common spent fuel pool. So on the back of it, because there's a big high embankment, these are transport truck containers stacked up because it washed everything in the back of it where it's hit away, right? But also reactor 6 was redacted, and the pump house and the stack. And then there was another section that was redacted. Now this piece right here, this is no longer existing, but the section that was redacted is right around here, and I'm going to show you that picture in a second. Well, actually all the way up to here, that whole area, because we used this as a landmark, and I believe this place here is a landmark when I flushed this out there about a month ago. We redone the 736 pictures, these pictures. So that section, see this section right here? This doesn't exist anymore. But we were able to go back in the old maps and find that section up there, and you can see it redacted up way up above that. I'll run up there. Hang on. So you can see the section right here redacted. We were trying to figure out why would they redact this area for? What was going on that they redacted that? Was that where all the dead homeless were too? We don't know. But that was one of the landmarks, which is right there. And then we were slowly able to extrapolate where that was to. But what was interesting was the pictures were released without fanfare. But so what was the point of that? Let me go down. Let me see. And see if you can figure it out in a second. See how it's drawing you a picture? It's going to draw a straight line down to. That's the common spent fuel pool coming up, and that's the reactors. So it was a little bit easier to find it, because, and then the picture shifted. So why did they release those particular pictures? Because they drew you a line up to here. They drew you a line right to there by releasing those pictures. Because the pictures are a little bit all over the place, right? And they draw a line straight down to the reactors, which are all redacted. And so was that place up there. And reactor 6 was redacted. And so when you come in from the seaside, was another set of pictures. It drew you a line straight up. Oh, it drew you a line straight up, and there were the three landmarks, the two yellow, and then the red one up there is the redacted. So why was this whole area redacted? Also was the question, right? And we knew we had our those two buildings, and then we had that shape over there, and because that was the original, right? And it's changed. The whole site has changed dramatically since then. They moved all administration up into that area, so those landmarks don't exist no more. When you go backwards, so then it also drew you a line down the shoreline. Sorry, to drew you down the shoreline. Oh, that's because we were trying to flush it out, and I saved everything because I'm like a fucking pack rat anyway. Hang on. Let's go down and finish up because we got a bunch of videos. We got 8 or 9 minutes of videos to get through from the weekend. How's time looking? Oh, well, we better go down there. I guess it's 10 too. Oh, I'm on the wrong. Oh, not. I'm not going to get through the rest of those headlines. It's okay. That's the way it goes, right? Because how far did I get, though? Oh, shit, I only got about half of it done. I stopped right on Scumbag, Geraldine Thomas. I apologize, everybody, for you having to see that. We'll probably cover that on, not tonight, tomorrow. Tomorrow's a news cycle. We'll probably cover the rest of this the next day. We got to do try to do a show this week on 3 Mile, because I think we missed the anniversary. All right, so James Lucid donated $400 on the weekend, and Stephen Young had donated $50 last weekend, so it was $450. And what I done was I took $250 from my pension and went in and got the axle, and I'll explain why we done that for the new trailer. So let's go through that stuff. We got some fun stuff. Just pretty boring for the average person, probably, but let's flush this out. Just give me a second, because it always takes a second for that to sync up. So first off, I went in and picked up the parts. I didn't get everything, but I got enough. And I'll explain that coming up, why I said that. If the system just starts working. Oh, playing hardball. Should work this time. She's still stalling. Just hang on a second. So I picked up the axle, 2 tires, the hanging kit, and still try it one more time. Here we go. Okay, so I picked up 2 13-inch tires. So I put the springs back, the leaves back, and I bought the inserts because that's $60, and these were $100 each. And I'm going to go pick up the axle on the other side of the building. So there's the axle. It's a 3,500 pound axle. So we got 2 tires. And can't get the small ones, unfortunately. They're good tires. We got a 3,500 pound axle. We got the hangers, which are $60. We got sleeves, because I ran out of money. And I'm going to try to keep the other set of leaf springs. $700 altogether. And so total was $700. Not counting fuel. No, that's counting fuel. So, too late now. I got it. So. Okay, so I can't get that brush off and put a grinder on. I can't get that off. I got to get another grinder. And sweet, eh? Liking that. So happy with that. Yeah, no kidding. So I got to take this apart, take all of these pounds off. I got this one already almost off. So that used to be a double axle. Look at that. See, that used to be a double axle. Son of a gun, eh? That's the same piece right there, look. That was a double axle. The other axle came out here somewhere, look. That's what was going on. That's why you see those holes right there. Oh, well. I don't need to. Son of a gun, eh? So we got the deck cleaned off. Or the rails taken off. Not cleaned off, but that's right. So don't think they were in a struggle to get off. So I'm trying to salvage the springs and the compressors. I'll probably take off this one first. I had to hit that one on the other side, and then this was actually a double axle. Let me get it out of the way here. So double axle, that's a picture. So
alrighty. Struggle. Yeah.
Got the back one off.
So we got everything sprayed. Everything sprayed. And do the same thing on the other side.
There's some boring stuff. But I used to always do this in the last number of years. Now, I shouldn't be doing this. I have to do it.
You just need one of these to come off.
I'm trying to salvage it, right? That didn't work. But I want you to see what I'm dealing with. It's hard to comprehend what I'm dealing with here. Thank God for the knee pads I picked up. Holy shit.
They put the bolt on the outside.
I'd be in some trouble.
You might get lucky.
I had to saw each of them off. Every one of them had to be sawed off. I just want you to see the craziness that I go through
get to
this work.
So my other axle
cracks me up sometimes.
Is 2 inches wider. So I got to put one of these sideways.
Done to us. What we done
so I can mount the springs and everything. The springs are going to be out here now, 2 inches. And then the other option was to spend just.
Well, the new axle, right? I'm gonna mount the hangers. I'm gonna clean off a spot there and weld the hangers on. You see where the bolt is back there? I got to put the hangers on the outside, so the springs will sit outside now. Because in order to get the axle I wanted, you're looking at $800 or something. And so I only had certain sizes to pick from. And I needed a 68, but I ended up with a 72. And you can't get a 68 with a 2,000-pound axle, so I had to go up to a 3,500-pound axle, which I got for $300, right, plus taxes. And you beat the daylights out of us with the carbon tax down there, 20% more on everything now. And you can see the shape. This is ancient, this axle. There's some good pictures and video rather coming up in a second.
It was almost $800 for
the big one.
The next upgrade in axles that would mimic the 68-inch axle that I got there. And I went to both.
Now see, the other problem is, you see those, how they're bolted on, there's a big chunk of metal, so the rim's empty, so you put the rim there, and then the big chunks of metal, and then the screw holds the chunk of metal, and the chunk of metal holds the 5 of them, holds the rim on. And so where am I going to get a spare tire or two, see, is another big problem I'm stuck with. So I'm forced to change the axles. But second-hand axles, trying to find one that'll fit is the problem.
Places, the big dealerships.
I had to get a new one.
And the other one didn't even sell you this hub or nothing. It was just a friggin' axle. That's okay.
So I got new shackles for the springs, but I'm trying to reuse everything.
Can't get a single nut budge on either side. I don't have any heat that I could use.
But look, that's
normally
the
just use heat,
just
right?
rusted right off on the other side.
Because all the bushings are gone.
Speedhead. And so you can see the shape this thing is in.
Today. And get a grind everything down, and then I don't know.
Let me see.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
That's why I need all the shit I got in order to do things I'm doing, so I don't fail, right? So I got a solution for just about everything now.
The only thing that's killing me is my
except for the grinder.
I cheaped out a couple of weeks ago and didn't buy a $30 grinder.
They still got it there.
Didn't have the extra money, right?
Now the sale went off yesterday or today for the springs and for the grinder. Could have got the grinder for $30 and the springs for $39 each, but now they're back up to $80 each starting tomorrow. I got to bring back the hanger kit, that box.
That was fucking stupid.
That box up right there, that's got the hanger kit into it. So that's only got 3 pieces. I paid 60-something bucks for it, which means I got to bring it back to the city to get the other piece. Because I can't do it without the other piece. So tomorrow I got to run into the city again, which is not planned, right? Just to get that extra piece. And what I like, and I need the new springs to make it work. There's no way I can use those old springs. I got to bring back those sleeves. They're only like $7 each. And I got to come back with a set of springs, or wait till I get them, right? Before I can move. Now I got to, the welding should be easy, but I need those hangers, which are in the boxes. There's one piece missing, one of the hangers. So you can't do it, right?
No, I'm paying for it. And so, oh yeah, I got steel blades for that.
So yeah, that's my story, but that was good.
Alrighty, good old hammer.
So I beat
good old
the
hammer
shit
gun,
out
so
of
we
that.
busted that open.
That was the only way to get the spring out without torturing myself.
That's the start. That's the first one. We just got to get 4 of them off, and then we can peel away this stuff, right? Get this stuff off after.
Oh, fucking beat it.
Okay. I'm after hitting that with everything. Alrighty. So we got one side.
Oh, I hit that again, did I? So now I'm on the other side.
Alright. Let's get the other side.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
Did I get the other side? So I used a cold chisel. I split the nut 4 ways, right? And then used a cold chisel to open it. And if I couldn't crack it off, then I would split it 4 ways and then hit it with the maul and collapse it. Then cut the same cuts again and then collapse it by hitting it with the maul. So all you're doing is making the bolts smaller and smaller and smaller until it can slide through the hole. That's how I finally got it. Because the metal that I'm using is forged steel, right? Doesn't make sense after. So on to the other side. And you can see I got a hole cut. I'm starting a hole there. Wait, where do I belong to? Oh, yeah.
So that one's gone. And
so just look at that again. So that was a bolt over there, a nut. And all I done was, that one I cut it down the side of the bolt because it wasn't as rusted as some of them. I was able to see where to cut. And then I used a cold chisel, you can see it up there, to separate it and get the nut to split in two. But it's forged steel you're dealing with, right?
So that one's gone.
So then I can just knock that through.
And
now I'm
down to that piece right now.
You can see I got half of that is gone.
I got 2 little small pieces I already knocked off it.
And then
I'll get it
that
this
part
time.
I split, hammer both sides and close it, split, hammer both sides and close it, and then pop it right through, right? That's how I got through that.
Wow, got her off.
Both sides.
Chaos.
It's 3 hours or something.
And
it was chaos.
Burnt out now. So I got both sides
I'm
off.
feeling it in my stomach too now, right?
I still got to cut off this nut here.
That's still hanging.
I'll
there.
do that
I haven't
tomorrow
got to
maybe.
that
That was 3 hours.
all together.
3 hours of nuts and bolts.
3 hours. 3 hours of trying everything. Finally come up with something that worked. Now winch the bugger out, right?
And then get started on mounting.
Oh yeah, that's what I do. Anyway, eventually get that out. And you can see how what I'm dealing with, right? It's insane, isn't it?
I don't think I can save those hangers.
So I need those. There's 2 hangers.
Springs. I don't.
Oh, hang on. So I need that hanger plate. I need those 4 bolts. And I need these hangers. I'm trying to salvage them and salvage the spring because we ran out of coin, right? And when you look at that now I hit that. Hopefully I got video or picture of it. I hit it with the 4-inch knotted wire on the grinder, the one I can't get off. Thank God I stuck the big one on it. At least it got some purpose. Take a long time to kill that
springs.
Steel,
I don't. I think I might be able to, but I don't think I should.
I don't think I can save it.
It's just they're so rusty.
They're $50 for both sides.
I'm gonna try it though.
In Texas.
Yeah, it's a disaster.
That's our next acquisition, is to get those and get the springs.
All right,
now I got it off. I got the tires on it. I hit it with the steel brush.
Clean them up a bit. I'm gonna spray them.
So then I spray them.
But you can see
they're welded onto the.
Pretty rough.
Look how the metal is chewed away. Some of them are. I got.
And,
I
might
got
be able to just mount the hangers.
Just let me go back for a second. I actually got the right tool for removing those nuts. It's designed to grip onto them. I'm gonna have to cut the top off it, but it's designed to grip onto them so you can get an old rusty nut off. Because some of these when you hit them with the impact wrench, they're not gonna work for you, right? Some of that stuff has been there for 40 years or something. But I'm going to try to salvage it because it's quicker than trying to raise the money.
Pretty rough, man.
I don't think I should. I don't think I will be able to. And look where it's sitting. So it's literally just level with the wood. If that dropped down, that wood framing. So right below that is the sheet of the side, the metal. That's thick metal, by the way. So you should be able to hit that with the grinder, clean it up with the flap disc, and then weld onto that the hangers. And then these will hang upside, or the shackles or the springs will hang from the hangers, and then the mounts for that will be lined up properly.
Yeah, but just mount the hangers.
I shouldn't have to
on
do
the
any of
outside.
this.
We could just weld them right on the outside out here.
Sit there and do all this himself.
Wouldn't that be nice? Because the wood extends out a little bit, right?
Years, right? But the thing is, we got the equipment to make it to get.
I think we can.
It's working. Every time we
I
go
bet
after
you can
now,
actually.
we almost see it through unless we have to buy more material, right? But when it comes to doing the work, we got the material and we can pull it off ourselves. So if you try to take this to the shop and get them to do it, you know they're going to rob you, right? And so I don't complain a lot. I'm not complaining now. I'm just saying, here's my challenges. Here's what I'm up against. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. And so this is going to be the small Zodiac trailer, because we got the small Zodiac doesn't burn any gas. You can go for 2 weeks on 5 gallons, or you can go a whole week on the 2.5 gallon tank. So you always have a 5 gallon can, right? And you can go a whole week on 2.5 gallons. And if there's any birds of that, because I got a cabin for the 10-foot Zodiac, and it has a 8 horsepower 4-stroke. We bought brand new, and a 3.5 Honda, a backup kicker that we bought, and we bought it brand new. These are both 4-strokes. And so I've done all the maintenance, taken care of these things. And we can put that in the lakes and the rivers, and there's lots of that stuff up here we haven't been able to get up, and we can take our research much deeper into in Mother Nature and really get hopefully this year. And so still early, still winter basically here, still nasty conditions. It's been stormy weather for like over 3 weeks now. And the idea now is to get this set up so I can get into freshwater lakes and rivers, because I got the quad. The quad will get you so far. But there's a lot of spots where ocean's 2 little communities where I can go down and get out and do quick research with something like this once I got the trailer up and running, because I can't afford to go out and spend $3,000 or $4,000 on a trailer, right? A decent one. And now I've got new axles. I'm going to have new tires. The tires are awesome. And that ends any kind of psychological worry, right? And so we can work that hard for many years to come. And that'll start pretty soon, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And it's very cheap to run this operation. It's very cheap. And that's a good thing.
And then just mount them onto the hangers.
And so that's all I got to do is weld onto this steel right here where my finger is pointing. Right? And then line up the two ends of the springs for the hangers. Weld the hangers right onto this. Just I'll have to put a backing plate there, cantilever backing plate, just to give it some extra strength. But I mean, that's just very strong trailer. It's a great trailer. It's just old trailer, right? But it was made of real steel. Alrighty. My apologies. I wasn't expecting it to take that long, but what's the point of rushing? That's not too bad. Because I don't, like, a lot of people don't have any fucking insight into what I go through all the time. Trying to get this whole operation up and working, make things happen. It's not a game, right? It's really not. And the nuclear industry, though, they hire 10,000 people to do their dirty work, right? They use up all the energy of a massive city for 100 years. And there's no accountability whatsoever with this industry. They loot and steal, and then they poison everything. All of these disease factories are surrounded by farms. Like, as far as you can see, so once they put fuel in the water, it's splitting atoms on a rate that the average person can't possibly comprehend. But we desperately need to put the fucking boots to this industry. We need to stomp their fucking guts out. This industry is a coward industry. We don't have the option of sitting around. There won't be a future generation to complain. We need to get fucking busy. And that's what me and the people that support me have been busy doing for many years. This is the ELP system, February 11, 2013. There's the ELP system 2 years later, 1 year, 11 months later. They're just starting it. Right? But we know that on August 9, 2014, it still wasn't running. There is no ELP system. They lost all the inventories. It's already gone. There's nothing in the tanks. The tanks were built to trick you. Despite the fact that they say that the tanks were full in 2013. I played that video for you earlier from the BBC, and they're not the only ones that made those assertions. And the TEPCO was completely incompetent, and everybody hated their guts. But there is no filtration. You can't filter it. It's not like oil from a car garage. It's not like a water filtration where you get the sediment back. It's not filtering stuff from the incinerator. It's not something you can filter. It's lethal. The filter becomes so lethal, you can't move the filter. You need a special truck like you do for the fuel assemblies to move it. Anyway, let's close the poll down, I guess. Should Japan and the nuclear industry apologize for killing the planet, the oceans, the species, and the future? Yeah, of course they should. And where does it start? It's like, if you go back through all of my polls and you gather up all my polls and you print that out and you give that to anybody that won't have a conversation with you and say, here, read this book on polls from a nuclear guy. And they'll just flash through all of these polls, right? Because the polls are easy. Should Japan and nuclear industry apologize for killing the planet's ocean species and their future? So you print out all of these polls, and there's an education there that the consensus is consistently that this nuclear industry has no right to exist. and that you need to fight with everything in your body, everything in your soul, everything in your heart against this industry. This industry will consume everything. It can't survive without consuming everything. That was pretty eloquent. Let me try that again here. I had it on cut. So cut is where it just jumps. It jumps from set to set, right? You can just pop around. Not from set to set, but from camera. It's supposed to be from camera to camera, right? You can just. That's not what we wanted. We're pretty lazy. We want to slowly just fade away. Have a great day. Have a great night. Have a great day tomorrow. I gotta head into the city to at least replace the parts that are missing. And so anybody can donate. We still need to raise 200. And then we're going to pick up the parts. So it's better if I can do it tomorrow while I'm in the city than it is in a week's time. But if that's what it is, or 2 weeks' time, then that's good too. And then we're 3/4 of the way to having the trailer up and running. Then we got to put it together, right? I got all the tools to do it, as far as I know. I got the skills to do it too. But I struggle. I have to struggle with everything, right? And thank God, we gathered up everything we gathered up over the last year or so. That has made it so much more realistic to get something done, hasn't it? Okay, take care, folks. We'll see everybody tomorrow night at the same time, same place. Have a great day. Have a great night. We'll see you then. Oh, I'm not fading away. That's okay. Thanks, James.